Welcome to AromaticChat, the podcast that introduces you to registered, clinical, and certified aromatherapists around the world. Every other week, my baby girl sits down with a different aromatherapist to learn about their aromatic journey and how they use aromatherapy in their lives and their businesses. AromaticChat is produced by Lemon Balm Coaching, and my daughter Melissa is your host. She is a master transformational coach and a registered aromatherapist.
Hey friends, welcome to podcast episode number 100. Can you believe it? Episode 100. When I started the podcast in 2020, I did so because as an extrovert in the middle of a pandemic, I needed to connect with my friends, and AromaticChat was born. Little did I know that 4 years later, the podcast would still be going strong with new guests every other week. This week, I'm chatting with Shellie Enteen. Shellie is an aromatherapist, astrologer, interfaith reverend, author, educator, and public speaker. She served on the board of the National Association of Holistic Aromatherapists, also known as NAHA, for 9 years, during which time she served as regional director for Florida and South Carolina. She has taught professional and continuing education classes in aromatherapy, and she wrote the Aromatic message in the Massage Today magazine. She has presented at conferences, and she was included in AromaTrust's 2023 Aromatherapy Summit. Her interest in Celtic ceremonial circles led to essential oil blends for the 8 cycles of the year, and she has written a trilogy, which you'll learn more about in a few minutes. So let's get started. Shellie, I'm so glad that you said yes to coming on to the podcast. You have been in aromatherapy for quite a while, and I just love hearing from, I call them our vintage aromatherapists, because you've been around. And I'm just so glad that you said yes. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. And yes, that conference in St. Petersburg was put together with a focus on vintage aromatherapists. And so I was asked to come to that, to participate. And there were some people who were doing this in the United States before me, definitely. It was like 1987, early for the United States.
Early for the United States. Like it was just coming into awareness at that time. My mom took a correspondence course to become an aromatherapist in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It wasn't even on my radar at that time.
I just wrote an article, Gabriel Moje, he has a journal, and he asked me to write about the mixture of aromatherapy and astrology, because I was an astrologer first. I was an astrologer when people, like, you didn't want to tell people you were doing it because you were a witch in a negative connotation. When I first came up here, I was teaching at a community college. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. I would walk in for the first day of an aromatherapy class, and I would start telling people Bible quotes that point out to the use of aromatics. It really is something that is a natural thing. That is, I don't have to say that anymore. Well, with essential oils, you can see the oil, but the process is invisible. It's like the air element process. The aroma, you can't see it happen. And astrology, you can't see it happening. And Reiki, you can't see that happen. All these things, Bach flower remedies came before aromatherapy. Vibrationally, it works. But, it's hard for people to, we're sort of still like, show it to me.
Right. If I can't see it and touch it, it's not real.
Yes. Acupuncture went through that too.
Yes. So did chiropractic.
Yes. It is really something you need to learn. As you say, educate. It's very important. And your organization, ARC, that you are on, that was a tremendous contribution to us. And I sat the exam.
Ooh.
I mean, I did because I was teaching people who, at that time, they were allowed to take the RA if they had the 2 levels with me. And it was a really intense exam. And it was important for us to get that kind of recognition, I thought.
So how did you become interested in aromatherapy?
Well, there I was. There I
Pull
was.
out your story time, Matt. Get your cup of tea.
You really should.
There I
It was just like everything else. Like I said, things just came to me. They presented themselves. So at that time, I was doing massage. I was already working at a big resort in Boca Raton. And somebody said to me one day, did you know that if you put juniper oil in your bath, you'll lose a lot of weight? If you're young, don't do this to yourself, because you're going to look back at those photos and you're going to say, wow, I was so beautiful. But women have a tendency to think they're too heavy and this and that. So really? I said, you could really do that. So Nature's Symphony in Boca Raton was near me and very close to where I was working. And Jerry Whitten and her partner in business, Pat, had opened really like the first place where you could get true essential oils. I just walked into the shop and that was a big moment. It was so exciting. And she was bringing teachers. I was in class with some people that are famous now, like Scylla. I was always interested. If I got interested in something, I was going to really go in. And so I brought the aromatherapy program to the resort. And so we were having a really nice experience in the massage area.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but
That's
it just,
awesome.
came.
And how did you use it in your practice, in your massage practice and astrology?
I used it in blends. The custom blend is very important to me. You can get a result from a blend that you use always for something like relaxing. But if you know what's going on with the person, you're going to make a major difference. So I was doing individual blends and with my private clients also. My experience was I got to smell so many of the oils. And then you learn as you study that, you've got a substance that magically transforms from a liquid to a gas. And then once it's in your nose, it's going to be an electrical charge when it hits the olfactory nerve. Then it's going to be something that stays in the library. And so, like if I said to you or anybody listening, how does peppermint smell? You would have it. So that's why I love this art so much, because it is an art. It's a science. Obviously, we were using these things before the microscope.
You have mentioned teaching.
Yes.
And you've mentioned practicing.
Yes.
Are you still practicing or are you mostly teaching? What are you doing now?
Well, I am mostly teaching, writing. I guess it was mainly COVID that stopped a lot of the practice. I got involved in Celtic ceremonial circles because I was writing, and I just published those 3 books about the Druid priestess. I started with the Celtic seasonal because I left South Florida, where I was living, Boca Raton, Delray, and suddenly I was in seasons again. I was so happy to return to them because I grew up in New York City.
Right.
So it just made sense to me. And I did that talk with essential oils, not every one of them, but this is what you could think of at this season to support the process that's going on, because each season is a process for us. I guess I love the subtle aspect. I'm a subtle aromatherapist more than anything.
Just in case there's somebody out there who doesn't really understand what that means, what does that mean, subtle aromatherapy?
Well, to me, it means the effect that's going to be received to the mind, and to your emotional state and to your spiritual state. You know, the incense that was used mainly before, tremendous amounts of essential oils were available was there to do that. Although frankincense, as an incense in the churches, was also protecting from airborne, especially respiratory, which was great. It had so they have both. But when I say I'm into the subtle, it is simply because I like to choose based on what I feel the person's mind and emotions are going through. So, for instance, when I was still living in Florida and Nature Symphony was nearby, a friend called me, and all she said was, I just came back from a chiropractor and he thinks I have gallbladder problems. Do you have anything for gallbladder? Any essential oils for gallbladder? Well, so Stilla has this aromatherapy practitioner manual, volumes 1 and 2. And in the back of volume 2, there's a wonderful list of conditions and all. But you notice, you get to gallbladder and you see there's about 20 or 30 oils listed, some of them with stars, meaning these are the ones that we use the most. But somehow, as my mind was looking through, like I said, my mind is seeing and experiencing, and I saw white rose. And I said to my friend, just because I saw it, and it said, I think this. Now, I don't think anybody, if you said gallbladder that I know who's in aromatherapy, would say rose, or maybe one. I don't know, but I would never have said it myself. So I said, do you like the smell of rose oil? White rose oil is what's coming up for me. She said, I can't believe you said that. And I said, why? And she said, I just saw this big bouquet of white roses on my way home and I wanted to bring them home.
Wow.
That's a clue. And after this, I said, well, then maybe you should go and Nature Symphony will dilute, because the rose oil is one of the more expensive ones. But she's going to wear it. She's going to put it on. So have them put some drops and some oil for you. And then she told me about the breakup with the, boyfriend number 33, and how depressed she was about it and how she felt so rejected. And that was the specific for rose of the flowers. I also love to teach the flowers as their personalities and the different reasons you use. And that is the heart. And exactly for women who feel they need to feel more self-love, they need to feel their beauty.
Yeah.
So that's why I love the subtle, because I think you have to learn the rest. I'm not discounting, the rest is so important. But when I work, maybe it's because I was an astrologer first, or did Bach flowers before I got to this. I was leaning that way.
And it's just interesting that the chiropractor's like, I think you have gallbladder problems, and we think of all of the emotions that the gallbladder, creates. Oh,
yes.
And everything's connected. Everything is connected in our bodies. I think we forget that. We forget that, like, it's all connected. And just because you're experiencing this one thing doesn't mean it's not affecting other parts of your body, mind, and spirit.
Right. And also that if your mind is thinking certain things, it doesn't mean it's not affecting your body.
Right.
Which is one of the harder things to, like, even, we were never taught that.
Yeah. My dad is my dependent now. He's my dad and my dependent. And he was putting in his insulin pump today. And he stood up before he attached the pump to his belt, and it pulled the thing out of his body. So he had to put another one in. And he sat down real hard and he's like, you dummy. And I said, no, Dad, you just forgot a step. You're not a dummy. You just forgot a step. But like, that's what we do. We just beat ourselves up for the tiniest little things.
Yes, we
And I
do.
mean, that's not a tiny thing. That's a medical device. I mean, it could have been a bad thing, but it wasn't, but just, like, no, you're not a dummy. You just forgot a step. It's okay. And I brought you two. There's a reason I didn't know why I brought two to you, but I did. Here's the other one. Put the other one in. And I was like, oh, there you go. That's why I brought two. So what are some of your other passions?
So some of my other passions. Well, I have been passionate about astrology for a long time. And I guess by the time people hear this, the first time we do the essential oils, herbs, and astrology course will have taken place, but it will be available for sale also. It's, going to be an incredible experience for me to be able to let myself merge these two, because I have done that also. Signature blends for people based on their charts, and aromatherapy, again, air element. I think everything I've done is the invisible realm of air. Writing, speaking, it's all astrology, aromatherapy, Bach flowers, Jitsu, Reiki, all unseen realm, but all very effective. And astrology is something that I've practiced for over 50 years. And I mean, again, I had mentioned to you earlier that it was not really considered a very cool thing to do at the time I started out. And I even actually lost a few friends. But, gradually. Now everybody wants to be it. Everybody is one. But I think it's something that you mature into also, the understandings of it, just like the essential oils, You have to be with them. You have to work with it. You have to see it. So I do like to do daily forecasts, and I do love to do readings for people. I love to do charts for babies, because I look at my chart and I wish somebody had read my chart, because I wasn't going to follow the path that was the only path for a woman in the 50s and early 60s. That's what I was growing up with, that indoctrination. And if you looked at my chart, you would say, no, she was never going to do that. So I am passionate about that.
So how does aromatherapy relate to the Druids in your trilogy? Because you did mention the books.
I did.
Yeah. How does aromatherapy relate to the Druids?
Well, aromatherapy, it doesn't relate as much to the Celtic Dark Age Druids in Wales, particularly, which is where the book is set, and it is the life story of a priestess, and her training is there. There is only one ceremony, I think, in the book where they're actually using 2 essential oils. However, the Druids infused oils. Okay, so we don't really call that, that's not essential oil, because
Right.
we're removing a certain substance, but they were more involved in that process. And they had black rose that was being grown on the priestess isle. It was and Glastonbury. And it had what I was told is it had a very powerful, spicy rose scent. So, and they were also very engaged in trading. We think we have such a wrong idea. And that's one of the reasons the books are coming out. They're like, here, let me show you who your ancestors really were. She really wants you to know, because we have all of their wisdom in us, accessible to us. They were coming in. The Romans obviously took over for a while. If you don't know, it's pretty famous. They were there. And they were bringing the stuff that they liked with them, so you could get spices and different kinds of things and wines and things, because the traders, it took a lot longer to get there. And of course, it would have been very expensive. And we know that when we study aromatherapy, that it is fairly recent in the history of this, long history of using aromatherapy, that people like us could even touch these, could even, had any access to it, because it was, hard to get, not as much of it, all of that. So in the blend, which is interesting, it's a goddess ritual. And the blend I was told that she was being anointed with to personify the goddess was rose and sandalwood, which was very rare. She had never smelled it before. And her teacher, Lady Gwendolyn, had only, smelled it. It was like, we don't use this.
Right. Well, even now, those two particular oils are very precious. Even now, I can't even imagine back then.
That would have been, the rose was something that was very much around the priestesses. They knew the aroma was affecting them, but they didn't have the essential oils. But they could infuse again. They made, it's more of an herbal quality. And if you were in the cities, or if you were in a Roman garrison or something like that, you might have had a little bit more.
I want to include a link to your books for anybody that's listening who would be interested in picking those up. Are they available on Kindle, or is it?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. It's only on Amazon right now because I did it as an indie. I did it as an indie publisher because the agent that I had wanted me to take all the training out. There are powerful love stories in it. It's really a beautiful story. Her life was quite amazing.
But we have to make those decisions that are best for us.
Well,
absolutely. And there's nothing wrong about that. It was perfectly right for you to do that.
Right.
And we can do that now. We have these platforms that allow us to do that, which is incredible.
Even now, too, the publishing industry has changed so much that they do require more from the authors now than they used to. So it's not like you get a book published and they just, promote it for you and, get it all everywhere. I was able to get it into the libraries in my county, Greenville County, because I live here. And
Very cool.
They did feature it in the main library. They had it shown. So, but it was a labor of love. It took me 20 years to bring it in.
Wow. So how have you seen aromatherapy change in the 40 years that you've been practicing?
Well, first of all, I was practicing before multi-level companies. But at the beginning, I was happy that more people were learning about it that way. It's difficult for me sometimes. And that's, one of the reasons that I kind of step back a little bit, because I used to try to communicate about certain things that I felt were important, about safety and stuff like that. Having been a teacher for so long, you really want somebody to understand. So that was tricky. But again, I mean, it's good that people have more awareness of these things and have access. So it's like a double whammy in a way. It's like, oh yes, this is good. So that was one of the major changes that came in. And then as I feel the emphasis, this happens in massage therapy, it happens everywhere. People want to be recognized. And so we started to go into the more clinical aspect, which is a good aspect. I'm not against it. But I started to feel like I was watching certain things, and I started to feel like people were choosing chemicals. Just, I can't do that. I'm not saying other people shouldn't do it, but it was a huge change. But when we first started in the United States, it was all like tra la 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 la, it was we, and England had this amazing magazine, some really good information presented in such an enchanting way, And then Scylla, she had this little chart of aromatherapy. Those were always very pretty, and it was really nice. And then she decided she would look and see if there were any contraindications. So this is all happening in the 90s, right? And that led her to study with an English physician, and that ended up being the 2 volumes of the Aromatherapy Practitioner Manual, volumes 1 and 2, where you can see all the chemistry, and you can do that. And Battaglia has a lot of this. Also, he has the wide spectrum. So these were people that I was always recommending, because you can find it all here, because they also had the subtle aspects and
Right.
So you could be whoever you want at any given moment. But, it just seemed to me that aromatherapy sort of passed me by when I didn't put on the white coat. I'm okay with not doing that. I'm okay with knowing, this is linalool, and this is, we've got chemagiline, and that's why, I'm okay with it, but it's not how I choose. I saw that was definitely a shift.
Well, and I was thinking about something you said earlier, how acupuncture and all these other things have gone from being an art to the more science. But I think there, even like chiropractic acupuncture and aromatherapy, we're still in aromatherapy, we're still trying to find that balance between science and art, where I think chiropractic and acupuncture massage, they've found their balance already. And I feel like in aromatherapy, we're still trying to find that balance between art and science, because it's a dance between art and science,
I think the more confident you are, the easier it is to do the dance. And one of the things that somebody told me who went, had knowledge of this, one of the reasons we're in pharmaceuticals so much in regular medicine is that it's the last module that they have before they're going out there to the public and working on people. And, even when I graduated from, I was at the Swedish Institute in New York City, tremendous amounts of anatomy and physiology and all of this. And it was so interesting. But you had practiced and all of this, but you were going to touch somebody and do a massage on somebody, and you don't feel confident at first. No matter how well you were doing, you're sort of afraid. So to give people this, fail safe, if this, then that, if this, then that, appeals to the person who has an even greater chance of hurting somebody, And so I think if we were more confident, we would be able to say, okay, I want one of those, which one? And then allow ourselves again to go into which of those that I know work on this is the one I need now. Because again, you really, once you've inhaled, and that's why I was always teaching with oils. I'm sure most teachers do that of aromatherapy.
I would hope so.
Well, I couldn't do it online, really.
I would hope so.
I couldn't really teach it online because I wanted to be passing this while I was telling the story of it. And again, the brain remembers it.
So what are you working on right now that you're really excited about? And it doesn't have to be aromatherapy related. Like,
I've been really excited about doing this workshop with Gabriel Moje because he is like in aromatherapy field. He's a star. I related to his book as a subtle aromatherapist because, he was talking about aromatherapy for healing the spirit and using his background in Oriental. Approached me, he said, would you do it? I said, would I do it? I already do it. So yeah, let's go for it. And now he's talking to me about the question that you asked. How can we talk about the herbs and the Celts? The truth is that the trees were like incredibly important to the Celtic people, and they made a lot of medicines from them, but they also had subtle qualities. So I'm kind of excited about getting that kind of message out, because at this moment in time, there's a planet that rules this part of the invisible realm. It's the Aquarius sign, which is very misunderstood. But now that Uranus, the ruler of this, is in Taurus, which is the very physical, mundane world, the plant kingdom, the mountains, the earth itself, Mother Nature altogether, is Taurus. I think we are being asked to see the energetic and reestablish our communication. So reestablishing my connection to everything that's around me and understanding my interaction and interconnecting, I think that we need that. So I'm passionate about that.
I can see that. Definitely. So the mission of the podcast is to connect you with the people who need what you have. So how can people find you?
Well, they can easily find me. My website is my name, ShellieEnteen.com. And they can find me on Facebook. The Astral Essence by Shellie Enteen page does daily forecasts. I have a Shellie Enteen author page.
Excellent. So as we come to a close, I always just like to hand the floor back to my guest in case maybe you feel like I missed something or there's just something heavy on your heart that you just want to share. This time is yours.
I think you've given me that opportunity beautifully. Really, I mean, the only thing I could do now is read my book to you, That's about it.
Excellent. Well, Shellie, thank you again just so much for coming on to the podcast, for sharing your passion for aromatherapy and astrology and your trilogy of books. Just amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's great to meet you.
I hope you enjoyed hearing from aromatherapist, educator, astrologer, and author Shellie Enteen. If you're interested in astrology, be sure to check out Shellie's Facebook page, and I'll include a link to her book series on Amazon in the show notes. Did you know you can leave a review for the show on Apple Podcast? Every review you leave helps new listeners to find the show and connect with their aromatherapist. Aromatic Chat is produced by Lemon Balm Coaching. I'm your host, Melissa, life and wellness coach for people who are broken, exhausted, hopeless, and overwhelmed. I am a master transformational coach, registered aromatherapist, and certified body code practitioner. I will see you next time with our next episode. Until then, peace, love, and aromatics.